universal cycle. We are moving through the universe in a cosmic cycle. And this cosmic cycle always moves from the center of the galaxy to the furthest point away from the center of the galaxy. The furthest point away from the center of the galaxy is most dark. The most light space or place in the universe is the center of the galaxy. And we always move in these 26,000 years, 13,000 years away from the center into the darkness. And then we move from the darkest place in the universe back towards the light. This is also what you can see in the yin and yang. It is natural that we always have two polarities, that we have plus and minus, positive and negative energy. That we have masculine energy that is represented in the yin and the yang sign as the black, and we have white. And in the original creation, in the original reality, those two polarities were completely woven together, blended together, without separation, without duality. Duality does not mean the same thing as polarity. Polarity means that there's always two polarities. But duality means that they are separated from one another, and unity means that they are completely woven together in oneness with one another, into a single consciousness. Yeah? Now, if you look into this revolution, the last time that we moved away from the center of the galaxy was the time that people were talking about this ancient civilization called Atlantis. The Egyptian pyramids were built in that time frame. And we fell from the fifth dimension, a really high level of consciousness, into the darkness of the third dimension, to learn and grow what it meant for us to be living in 3D, third dimension. And in the third dimension we have all of these spheres coming up. So we moved further and further into the darkness, into the cycle, which was based on learning and growing and knowing how, and better not than knowing how not to do certain things, by giving the authority over to the masculine, over to the mind, to let the mind make decisions. And if you look into all of the history books, if you look into the Western schooling system, all of the things in how we have been brought up, basically, they were all still very much structured, regulated societies, very left brain, mental, masculine. And now, since the 1990s, we have been moving away from the furthest point of the center into the direction of the light. We are moving into the awakening part of the cycle. We are moving towards the light, towards the center of the galaxy, and every day we wake up, we move closer and closer and closer, and the energy becomes higher and higher and higher and higher. If you follow all the websites, of course, you will see that the Schumann resonance is the resonance that measures the frequency of the earth, and every day this energy becomes more and more and more. This energy becomes higher so that we are letting go, trusting and surrendering from the body what the body has accumulated throughout this cycle through the darkness. And we have had past lives, we've had parental lineage, we have ancestral lineage that all have certain negativities that we are now currently releasing, letting go of. And this awakening part of the cycle is the yin cycle, it's the feminine cycle. It is the cycle where we are all being asked by the universe to give our authority, to give our control back to the heart. Because the heart is the feminine brain and the mind is the masculine brain. So therefore, this explanation requires to be first. Now, I've spoken already a little bit about polarity, duality, singularity, unity, and separation, or duality consciousness. On the screen you see the original flower of life, which is the creation pattern that was first created by Source. And about 200,000 years ago, we decided that that reality that was first created was getting a little bit boring. And because it was getting a little bit boring, God said, you have free will, so if you want to learn and grow from something differently, you get the free will to also be able to learn and grow from something that is different. And that's why Lucifer was created. And Lucifer created the reality that is called duality. Duality is the flower of life that you see, that always sees through two eyes that are dualistic. They are separating. It is what you could call the consciousness of good, bad, positive, negative, good and evil, wrong and right, comparison. You know, you go to a place and this place might, I don't know, the petrol is this amount of money for a liter, and you go to another place and there all of a sudden the petrol is twice the price, you know, and then you're robbing yourself from having a good time because you get negative, because you're comparing the previous place with the next place. Yeah, so duality is the consciousness that separates. It is the consciousness that judges negatively. While the original reality of Source is the reality of unconditional love. Loving something, loving life, no matter what. Even though this place might be more expensive than the other place. And it might be a little bit more pricey here than a little bit over there. That is the original reality that has no negative judgments. The original reality only has discernment. A discernment could be whatever they're doing over there where they're making war is not in alignment. It is not healthy. It is not okay what they are doing. But once we start making it bad, wrong or negative, we are contributing to the same consciousness that created the chaos that is happening over there. So the only way out of that is to kind of like choose a timeline that you're almost into a state of like, you know, you're still witnessing what is happening. That might not be healthy, that might not be okay, that might not be in the highest integrity, but you're not making it bad, wrong or negative. Because as long as we are making it bad, wrong and negative, everything that you currently don't like on this planet is going to perpetuate itself continuously. You don't get out of war by making the war bad, wrong or negative. You get out of the war by no longer putting your time, your energy on negativity that eventually will perpetuate itself. And this is how also consciousness works. So if you look into the human evolution, you will see that once mom and dad have had intercourse and the sperm cells are all surrounding the female ovum, then the female ovum actually magnetizes that sperm cell that she wants to give birth to organically. It's not like everybody's allowed in, right? So she chooses, and that cell that she chooses, she magnetizes that cell, that sperm cell, into the female ovum. The head of the sperm cell becomes the first male sphere, male cell. And the female cell is already there, and once they have merged into each other, then already spirit enters into the center of the geometry, which is the little white dot that you see in between the two circles of male and female. And as soon as that spirit enters those two cells, those two polarities, every certain amount of time, another cell evolves, and we become, from 2 cells, we become 3 cells, 4 cells, 5 cells, 6 cells, 7 cells. 7 cells becomes the seed of life, and you will also see that the seed of life always carries one center point in the center. It always represents unity, it always represents singularity, it always represents no separation. That is the original creation pattern of the seed of life, and then the seed of life grows out into the 19 spheres, the 19 cells of the flower of life. And that flower of life becomes a physical blob in our mother's womb. We first become a physical blob. And from that physical blob, the physical blob grows out into the human heart. Science has proven that the heart evolves first. And then once the heart has evolved, the heart creates an airbag, a sort of like, you know, in the car we have an airbag that protects us if we have an impact. The heart has a sac surrounding the heart that also protects the heart from impact. And that sac that surrounds the heart then grows out into the human tongue. This is one of the reasons why we have such a strong connection with our mouth and our tongue to what feels healthy You know, once we've felt that something is healthy for us, we might be like, oh, this feels really good, you know, like drinking cacao or having something that, yeah, immediately gives us the oxytocin, the feelings of feeling good when we consume something that is healthy for us. So, and then the rest of the fetus evolves once the heart has been fully evolved. This is also why that if you take a photo of an embryo of fetus in your mother's womb, in our mother's womb, that the heart is most densely grown organ. And therefore the heart carries the original reality of flower of life, of unity, of singularity. And in the mind we are more connected to what you would be able to call the duality or the separation reality. This is the geometry that you eventually will have inside of your own heart. And since the intention of this workshop is to guide people from living in their mind from the heart to living fully and completely in your own heart, I will also be explaining you a little bit about how you are able to move inside of your heart. So we're first going to be exploring in this workshop with the bodywork techniques after the explanation. And then after exploring on each other, we're going to be doing a meditation. And in that meditation, I will be guiding you through alchemy, light work. And that gets you to clearing your aura, clearing your energy centers, your body. And then I will be guiding you into your heart. Now you go into your heart, first of all, by bringing awareness into the center of your mind, where you carry the pineal gland. And from the pineal gland, you take a moment to feel your heart skull all around with your awareness. Feel the two hemispheres of the brain. And then you move from the pineal gland, you move your awareness towards your throat. You take a moment to feel the difference between carrying your awareness with the heart skull all around versus carrying your awareness with the soft throat all around. There's no heart skull in the throat, so it feels much softer there. And then I'm going to invite you to start moving your awareness from the throat to the behind of your heart. Your heart has a front side. Your heart has a right side, a left side, top, a bottom. Your heart also has a behind side. If you look at the heart from behind, it's almost like how you have a fist. The heart is completely grown with a vortex inside of it. And the vortex opening sits at the back of your heart. So not on the front side, not on the left, not on the right, not above, but behind. So when you are laying on the mattress, you kind of like have your heart on the behind, laying at the mattress side. Yeah? And the front will be at the front of your chest. So you have to move all of your awareness to the behind of your heart. Once you are behind your heart, you simply use this vortex, this portal, this sacred doorway, straight into the sacred space of your heart by setting the intention to move into the sacred space of your heart using an inhalation and an exhalation. And once that movement has stopped, you've made it into the sacred space of your heart. Now the sacred space of your heart, if you look at the screen, you will see that this flower of life has almost it's almost as if you're looking into an eye, right? You have the very center, which is of course the center of your heart. And around the center of your heart, you will have your sacred space of the heart. This is kind of like the iris that you can see that is surrounding the very center of your heart. Yeah? So these are two spaces and they are located within each other. And from behind your heart, you first move into your sacred space of the heart. Once you are in the sacred space, you ask, let there be light. And when you ask, let there be light, light will be coming to you from the center of your heart and it will light up your whole sacred space with light. Some people are able to feel it. Some people are able to sense it, see it, know it. It's different for everyone. If you don't see light, be okay with not seeing light. Yeah, hold it in acceptance. Everybody is able to feel or sense. right? So therefore allow yourself to be able to feel or sense it. Then you give yourself a silent hum inside the sacred space of your heart. Silently hum. You don't have to verbally out loud make this mantra. It is only necessary for you to silently make that mantra. The silent hum will create a vibration in your sacred space of the heart for you to more easily find your way back every time you want to or need to return. Yeah? It is simply a mantra that gives a memory inside of your sacred space. And then you start to meditate in the light of your own sacred space with simply the intention that your spirit is going to move, and when that movement stops, you will be in the center of your heart. Now, Rumi would call it the center of the heart. The Kogi, the Tibetans would call it the tiny space of the heart. The Hopi or the Egyptian, the Mayans, they call it the smallest space in the heart. There's different names for the same thing. It is either the tiny, the smallest, or the center of your heart space. And this is the space that you would see on the screen. That is the light point, the center, in the creation pattern of the flower of life. And you could almost say, or you can say by definition, that this space existed before anything in existence existed. It is the void in every universe, and you carry the void in every universe also inside of yourself, because you are a reflection of all that is. You carry all of the stars, the planets that you can see in the universe inside your own soul, and your soul is a reflection of everything that you can see in the night sky. This is one of the reasons why Hermes Trismegistus always told this phrase of Thoth the Atlantean: as above, so below, so below, so above. As within, so without, so without, so within. As the universe, so the soul, so the soul, so the universe. Yeah? If you go into my Awakening the Illuminated Heart ceremony after this session, you will be able to learn more about that. So with this workshop we'll go also into the human logical system. And for this we first have to connect ourselves to the divine source, creation. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, the infinite. It's all one and the same. And this frequency is surrounding us all the time, but with using our intention we can connect with this deeper. And I'll be guiding you in a process to connect with this frequency first by connecting you to the spirit, to the soul, to the heart of the earth. And then once you are connected to the heart of the earth, connecting you to the heart of the sun, the universe. And then both of those polarities are able to come into your spirit, which is this yellow triangle that you see in the image, which is representing your superconsciousness, your energy. And wherever your awareness goes, your spirit flows. If you have ever done a yoga nidra and you're going with your awareness to your right big toe, you will feel that all your energy moves where your awareness goes. Your spirit is your energy. Yeah. And your spirit is also your soul, but let's not make it too complicated. Then we go into the next part of the human logical system, which is the blue box, which is the intellect. This is our mind. This is where we have a choice. The conscious mind can choose whether you want to give more energy to the emotion of agitation, or if you want to soften that agitation into gentleness, right? That's a choice. We can choose to put fire onto the anger, or we can choose to put love onto the anger, so that that love eventually transcends the anger into more gentleness, into more softness. This is the mental and the emotional part of mind. The left and the right brain are, the right brain is emotional part of mind, left brain mental part of mind. In the body we have this completely the opposite. Our right side of the body carries the feminine. Our left side of the body carries the left side of the body carries the feminine, and the right side of the body carries the masculine. and the subconscious is held inside of ourselves by our inner child. The inner child is the creative, the playful one, who keeps coming back around and around and around and around again. And every time we come back, we get a new inner infant, we get a new feminine, and we get a new masculine. But the inner child is the part inside of us that keeps coming back around and around and around and around and around again. This is hidden in the physical part of mind, in the body. The body also carries a divine double or an etheric double of the physical, which is in Egyptian called Arka bodies. So when you are working with bodywork, you're also opening up the meridians, you're opening up the physical channels of the nervous system, etc. And that's also something that we're going to be working with. Because, like the image of the iceberg, the intellect is only 10% of our consciousness. This is the consciousness that we have been conditioned with, that you always need to use your mind to make the correct decisions in life. But you should actually use your body, and the body holds the subconscious, which is actually 90% of our consciousness. We go into a little bit of information about how consciousness evolves. And on the screen you will see the map of consciousness, which was developed by spiritual psychiatrist David Hawkins, who himself got really high on this map of consciousness. He reached the level of a little bit above 500. Other people who are on this level are currently Eckhart Tolle or Don Ruiz from the book of the 5 agreements, the 5 amendments. You know, people who are getting close to that level, 400, is a Dr. Joe Dispenza or Matthias de Stefano. And then there's lots of people slightly further down. Our collective consciousness currently is still at 175, which means that we are still in ego, we are still in pride, we are still in, you know, maybe at times arrogancy, jealousy, envy, competition. All of those kind of frequencies are the frequencies that you can see that are below the red line. And the colors of the map also show how open, how healthy your energy centers are. If there's a lot of contraction in your root chakra in the red, then you will be feeling miserable, or you will feeling guilt, blame, or shame. That's when the root chakra contracts, and therefore this might be something that is playing out in your consciousness field.
How do you know who you are?
I don't think, you know, what happens with our consciousness is that we constantly go kind of like through a wave, right? And the only reason why I'm also bringing this up is not for us to kind of like figure out where are we ourselves. I think it would actually be better if somebody else would do that for you, so that it doesn't become like a competition or something, because that's not the intention of this. But if you would, for instance, go into a meditation and you've just meditated for an hour, you come out and you're in love, or you're in neutrality, you know, and you might feel super peaceful, and you've just been in this very neutral state of trust and satisfaction and release, which is the neutrality frequency of 250 on this scale. But then you go out in life and you're in traffic, and all of a sudden somebody's driving in front of you who doesn't drive the way you were hoping this person to drive, and all of a sudden you get super frustrated. So you're back in fear. And you can use the map for you to transcend your consciousness into higher levels of consciousness by following what the map shows you. If you are getting frustrated, you have to start loving the frustration. If you feel miserable, you have to start loving the fact that you feel miserable by something. If you feel agitated, you have to start loving the agitation, so that you can transcend the agitation into more gentleness, more softness. Because what the map shows you is acceptance is at 350. Acceptance means that you have to forgive yourself and everyone else in this life and in your past lives who have ever hurt you, or you have hurt them. Therefore you have to forgive yourself and everybody else, And if you are at that level that you have forgiven everybody else and yourself, you are at 350. Which also means that if somebody in traffic doesn't drive the way you were hoping them to drive, you don't get frustrated anymore. Yeah? Because if you would drop down into frustration, that means that 350 is not yet your baseline consciousness. Yeah? Now, how this also works is that consciousness has 12 dimensional levels. And in every dimensional level, there's 12 octaves. This is why you might encounter 12 times people who are not driving the way you were hoping this person to drive. That person might get you frustrated. If you love that frustration, if you accept that frustration, if you forgive the person, forgive yourself, then you are in the process of transcending the emotion of becoming frustrated for one time. If you do that 12 times without succumbing to fear, you have transcended frustration in this 12 octaves of the dimensional level, and therefore next time somebody doesn't behave in the way you were hoping this person to behave in traffic, you don't get frustrated anymore. You're just like, no, it doesn't really impact me anymore. This is the reason why I'm showing this to you, mainly, not so much to figure out where you are, but of course, if you recognize that you still get these emotions that maybe make you feel miserable or frustrated or angry, then you are still in the process of transcending those emotional states that you might find underneath the red line. Which means that your baseline, which is the baseline where you are at, is still somewhere on those emotions that you can still sometimes also experience. Once you've one time put fear onto it instead of love, you have to start all over again. This is why sometimes life for certain people become like a roller coaster, because they are simply not aware of how you are able to heal and transcend things, which only happens when you start loving what arises. Don't make it bad, wrong, or negative. This is why I've also explained what is the difference between duality and polarity. And what is the difference between duality versus singularity. Singularity is everything that you see in green, in the heart, the blue of the throat, the third eye. These levels of consciousness of higher than 550 are very difficult to achieve. Yeah, Yogananda had a baseline consciousness of 550, and he sometimes reached 700, but that was when he was meditating for 28 days in a cave in the Himalayan mountains. Yeah, that's the levels that you can achieve, which are very difficult to achieve. So when we actually come out of a meditation and we feel very peaceful, it doesn't mean that you're in peace consciousness, it means that you're in neutrality. That's the first level of peace that we are able to experience once we get above the red line and we're getting out of the ego consciousness. Also in the presentation is this sheet of the falsehood emotions. And everybody who joins the workshop will get all of this information afterwards. So you don't need to make photos, or you can make notes if you want to, of course. But since you're going to get the video, you're going to be able to just watch the video again and again and again. This sheet is also in the presentation. It shows you all of those lower levels, lower states of consciousness that you are able to love what arises, accept what arises, forgive what arises. And through that, you will be able to transcend them. You might have to transcend miserable 12 times to be able to move through. You have to, transcend greed 12 times, laziness 12 times, inadequacy 12 times, failure 12 times. You have to transcend the frequency of lust, the lustful, seductive energies that are also in these layers. Anger, you have to transcend also 12 times, and therefore after 12 times you might not be jealous anymore. But if you feel jealousy, it's not your duty to push it away. It is your duty to hold yourself through that emotion of feeling the jealousy, so that you are in that moment accepting it, loving it, forgiving it, and you move through it. It's in the same way as the ancient Hawaiian modality was, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. Which is a mantra that if we would constantly tell that ourselves when we don't have anything to do, and you're just meditating with that mantra, all of the negativity that normally comes to you doesn't even come to you anymore, because you're constantly in a state of transcending what arises by, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. And if you have not been working with that mantra, then all of a sudden something comes to you, and the only thing that you need to do is again reconnect to that mantra, so that in the moment of feeling a negative emotion, you're immediately holding space for that emotion and transcending that emotion, so that that dissolves in your reality. That is the falsehood emotions. In the presentation there will also be this map, and this photo was taken by a fabulous photographer, Gray, who's with us today. It shows you all of the energy centers in the colors, and then how the ligaments, the body parts, the intestines that are located to certain emotions that we might have trapped in our body, or if we are constantly in a self-doubting, a self-sabotaging, self-avoiding pattern, we might see this in brain overthinking, stubbornness, etc. So this is also something that you can have a look at home later on. And the one map that we're going to be working with today is this map, because this map is developed also based on the energy centers, based on the previous page, and it shows you which muscles, which connective tissue areas, which fascia areas hold certain emotions. And the emotions that we are able to experience around the hips are related to the root chakra, the fear of feeling unsafe, the fear of trust, distrust, lack of trust, guilt, blame, shame. Everything that you saw on the map of consciousness in the red area will be in this part. Lack of manifestation, you can also call that not feeling good enough. If we don't feel good enough about ourselves, we're also going to have a lack of manifestation in our reality, because if we don't feel good enough about ourselves, we'll also be manifesting a lack due to that. Around the navel chakra, we have all of our undigested issues, parental, ancestral, past lives, and karmic issues. Here we have been connected umbilically to our mom, and of course when mom and dad came together, we received 50% of the DNA of mom and dad, and therefore also their mom and dad, their ancestral lineage. This is something that we hold in that connective tissue area, the fascia area around the navel, and it can be the fear of authority. Men have been manipulating, controlling females, and there's also been females who had a very dictatorial masculine energy, who have maybe been using that to control other people. This is the fear towards authority, controlling, manipulating authority. It can be a dictator, but it can also be somebody who is putting him or herself above others instead of seeing things equally in equanimity. The fear of death, that can also really result into the fear towards endings and new beginnings. If we fear death, we also fear to start something new, because in the starting something new, the old self needs to die off. The old part of the ego, who's maybe attached to certain things, needs to die off in the old self. If you are finishing a relationship, your old self dies off in that old relationship, and only by letting that part of yourself die off, you are able to rebirth the new self in that new beginning. That can be the ending, new beginnings fear, and the fear of death. The fear of failures, mistakes is located in the navel area. The fear towards responsibilities and responding to life. Are you afraid to respond to life? You might be hesitating. You might be overthinking then a lot about what to respond to. Or afraid to respond to the responsibility to respond to life. To respond to your life force. To respond to your creative energy. This is located in the navel. The fear towards the past. And if we are afraid of the past keeps perpetuating itself into the future, into tomorrow. The fear towards the past. If we are afraid of the past, it is not our duty to get rid of the past. It is only our duty to allow the past to be safe within us. As soon as the past is safe within us, the past continues living inside of us as a wisdom. As soon as the past is safe within us, the past becomes a wisdom. But if the past is living inside of us from a fear of feeling unsafe, then the past only keeps repeating itself into the future or into tomorrow. And that can also then result to the fear of tomorrow or the future. The fear of inadequacy, not being good enough, is also in the navel center. And all these fears, of course, have then an effect in also what we are able to feel in that area. And it is the area that connects us to our intuition, our instinct. If we do not trust our instinct, then we create more contraction, blockages, and dried out fascia in that area, which we're going to be exploring with soon. Then we go into the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the center of our emotions. It is our emotional intelligence center. This is where we usually, respond from, or put our power onto the frustration or the irritation, the anger, the aggression, the disappointment, the bitterness. These are the emotions that we are able to experience in the emotional intelligence center of the diaphragm. Pancreas, kidneys are connected to this center, the nervous system. And this is also where we have fearful emotional nervousness. It can be the nervousness to having a lack of faith in ourselves. The fearful nervousness of faith can then also have an effect on feeling nervous. It can be the fearful nervousness towards emptiness. And emptiness is where loneliness starts. When we feel empty, through the emotion of feeling empty, we then all of a sudden start to feel, for instance, loneliness. And then that's the story the mind creates out of the emptiness that we first feel. The fearful nervousness towards our true nature. Are you afraid of your love, your light, your truth? That can get you into avoiding the confrontation with truth. Avoiding the confrontation with your highest light, love. That is the fearful nervousness toward your true nature, because you are love, light, truth, ever evolving into higher levels of love, light, and truth. That's who we are. That's where we are infinitely ever evolving into. Fear towards intimacy. This can be intimacy, of course, because we maybe have had a traumatic experience with intimacy, touched in a wrong manner, that can create a blockage. It is also the intimacy between our polarities. If you have built a wall between your inner masculine and your inner feminine, there might be the fear of intimacy between the two polarities inside of yourself, between your masculine and your feminine. And then, of course, that fear of intimacy that you carry inside of yourself is going to be reflected to you by your environment, because everything that we are still holding inside of ourselves is going to be reflected back to us. This is one of the things that you learn when you get into connecting to the Akashic Records, that it's never only the other person. It's never just the other person. There's always two people co-creating something, and therefore the other represents that mirror. The fear of tradition, the fear of tradition can be the tradition that if you don't like Christmas, then that might be too traditional. Or if you decide to break up your relationship because it becomes too traditional, then that is the fearful nervousness towards things that might become too traditional. fear of silence gets you into maybe somebody silencing you. If you've ever had a parent, an authority figure, telling you to shut the fuck up, or in an angry, unhealthy way, that could leave the emotional charge of being silenced, and then you will be attracting people who are also silencing you. Until you have allowed the learning and growing in knowing how and better not, and knowing how not to do certain things to become safe within you, so that that negative charge becomes neutral, and from that neutral it goes into acceptance, from acceptance and forgiveness it goes into transcendence, so that the past becomes safe within you, and therefore you might not attract people anymore who silence you. The fearful nervousness towards inadequacy is also an emotion that we're able to experience in the kidneys, the nervous system, the diaphragm, pancreas area. And then we go into the heart center, along the rib cage, the heart chakra. We also carry the fear towards intimacy in relationships. Now, this can be something that you maybe consciously have learned that you don't have anymore when you're in relationship with physical people around you. Because of course, if we go to a lot of Osho workshops and all of those kind of things, we can grow out of that. But that does not mean that your polarities have resolved that fear of intimacy. There might still be beliefs that are holding the wall up between the masculine and the feminine. This can also be the emotions that are trapped in the connective tissue that sits around the heart. You carry in the heart center, we carry the fear towards our highest version of ourselves, the fear towards our soul purpose, our emotional detachments can be trapped in the rib cage. So this goes into the lungs. Emotional detachment can be that we have not processed grief or sadness. Therefore, the body can hold that grief, that sadness in the rib cage area. And then we have underneath the collarbone, and this is related to the higher heart chakra, we have the energy that we can accumulate there of worrying. Worrying is when we try to carry the whole world on our own shoulders. We're feeling burdened, we're feeling held back. These are the energies that we accumulate around the collarbone areas. This map on the front side and the back side represent exactly the same things. If you have lower back pain, that is related to your navel. And you can work on the lower back pain from the front side and on the behind side. Today in this workshop we're going to only be working with the front side, so that you can actually use this information also to facilitate maybe breath work, or if you do any physical therapy and you're not used to working on someone who's facing down on the table and you need to work on the back side. You can use this information.
So it would be the same trigger points on the back side as well?
Yes. So on the front side you will have your psoas, on the behind side you have your sciatic nerve, and you have your piriformis. Yeah? On the front side you have your navel, on the back side you have your lower back. On the front side you have your diaphragm, your plexus, and on the back you will have the muscles that go along your spine that usually have the same trigger points. On the front side you have your sternum, your rib cage, and on the behind side you'll have your scapulas, the two bones that are sitting in the left and the right side of the back, and they hold those informations. If you have things here around the collarbone, worrying, trying to carry the whole world on your shoulders, then you will also have a very stiff neck, because the top of the scapulas, the trapezius muscle, goes then from there up into the back of the neck.
But would you need to treat it from both sides, or only from one side would be enough?
From both sides, yeah. One of the reasons why I'm also introducing you to the physical body work and the alchemy, the energy work, is that you actually should also work with it from both sides in that perspective. Not only physically, but actually remove the subconscious beliefs, which you can do by connecting into the Akashic records, so that you can actually remove the beliefs that are causing the behavior that lets somebody feel burdened or held back, or trying to carry the whole world on their shoulders, right? And then all of this information always moves with the life force from the bottom of the spine through all the energy centers up, and the mind, the intellect, just like the human logical system says, the intellect keeps living out what is still buried, what is still hidden in the subconscious mind, right? So all this information runs up, and the mind can then get into anxiety, and the anxiety starts in the adrenal glands in the bottom of the spine. If you feel unsafe, you feel distrust, if you feel not good enough, those energies will come from the base of your spine, from the navel, from the solar plexus up, and then the mind lives out anxiety. Yeah? Anxiety is a mind-based fear. And that mind-based fear always comes from the emotions that we still have trapped inside of our energy centers, inside of the muscular tissue, inside of the fascia, the connective tissue. And therefore we can also have the anxiety. So for instance, putting yourself or other people always in challenging situations. If you are constantly challenging everything, challenging is again agitation put into more agitation. Yeah? Or if you are always challenging the status quo, then you can do that in a gentle or soft way, or you can do it in an agitated way. Of course, then agitation, you will be in duality, you will be in negativity. If you're doing it from a gentle, soft way, then you will be in a more single, more accepting, more forgiving frequency. And what we put out is always coming back to us. If you put out negativity, that negativity will immediately backfire at you. That's why the more negativity we put out into the collective, the more negativity will be coming back. The more we put out the good and evil consciousness, the more the good and evil consciousness will keep perpetuating itself. And the only way out of that is to stop giving time and energy to fear or to negativity. Because those people who have the agenda to keep creating war, they're going to keep creating war. You can't change them, they can only change themselves. And if they're walking around with certain entities inside of themselves, you can't remove them. They have to, and they're probably not going to be letting that happen anytime soon anyway. So the fear of, the anxiety of rejection is something that we can experience. If you are ignoring or rejecting your intuition or instinct, you will learn that you should have trusted your instinct or intuition over ignoring or rejecting it with any of the tangible, reliable perspectives, opinions of the mind. If you're afraid in a dark room, you're afraid of ghosts. If you're afraid of being in a dark alley or a street or in a dark park, then that might be the anxiety of darkness is more powerful than light. If you are labeling, judging the whole collective to be in a chaos, or there's chaos all around us, you can still label it that way, but if you can be the eye within the storm, if you can be the peace within the storm, then you transcend the anxiety of chaos by loving what arises. Futility means if you would say, I'm pointless, I'm useless, then you're negatively judging yourself for being pointless or useless. That's what futility means. Self-doubt, if you are self-doubting, you are putting fear onto that what you're having a doubt about. If you are worrying, you're putting fear onto that what you're having a worry about. And fear always starts consuming creative space, creative energy. And therefore, once you start self-doubting, once you start worrying, then you're already in the process of maybe overwriting your intuition, your instinct, your highest excitement, your highest spontaneity, your emotional creativity, your satisfaction with what might seem more tangible, more reliable for the mind. So therefore, always be aware that intuition talks to you right now, spontaneity talks to you right now, and it might not repeat itself. So you have to immediately trust it. You have to immediately go for it. Any questions so far? No? Alright, so then, based on this information, we're going to be exploring with this map.